It's a Spotify podcast. You pushed me down, thought I'd stay on the ground, counting me.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rabbit Holes. What's going on, Steve-O?
Oh, not a lot. Just enjoying a quiet week. Beautiful day out there today.
Yeah?
After that torrential downpour and the flooding.
Yeah? Was it bad?
It was bad. I mean, it was... I know you...
Yeah, I just watch YouTube primarily, so I'm kind of oblivious to what's going on these days. So
yeah, so there's some shots of some cars floating down like I-35 and
really,
yeah. So
oh my God! Now, if 35 shuts down, that's the main. Anybody international or whatever, that's the main corridor here through Austin. So
yeah, and the worst road in the world to drive on.
Yeah. It actually goes all the way to Canada and all the way south to Mexico. So
yeah, and for a long time, the lower down, we have an upper deck and a lower deck just north of the river here in Austin, and it was classified as the worst section of highway in the country. Most accidents, all that.
Oh, I can believe that. Wait, but this wouldn't. Is this now or? Oh
no.
Well, I guess it hadn't really changed. It's that lower deck where those short.
Yeah, you got the short on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we held the number one spot for decades. Not to be outdone, Dallas copied that exact format. So
Are
now,
you serious?
Yeah. So now they have the most dangerous.
Well, it's population control.
Yeah,
You got to look at the positive side of it.
So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, I guess the mix masters, the multi-level, weren't enough for it. Let's throw in some short ramps and.
Oh my God. Well, at least we don't have. Any earthquakes for those damn bridges. We have probably the highest bridges in the world too. I don't know. They're stacking them up. I mean, they're stacking them 4 high now.
Yeah, so. That one interchange has 6. It's 6 interchanges, so it's 6 levels.
My goodness, and that's like, what is that? 35, 40 feet in between each one.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah, so they do go down. So the lowest level they dug into. So,
okay.
But that still only takes 35 feet off.
I mean, that's still like 200 feet up
in
the air with 4 levels.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not. I get
a long ways up.
I feel it. Like, I get anxious when I'm on that top one.
I bet.
And if you're ever driving it.
Is that here?
No, it's in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Thank goodness. Yeah, the ones here, they get up there.
Yeah.
They're 150, almost 200 feet, too.
Oh,
so.
my God. I saw the craziest shit talking about, good thing this is called Rabbit Holes. You know what a Furby is?
A Furby or a furry?
Maybe it's a furry. I don't know. I just saw it on TV. The craziest shit I've ever heard in my entire life, that in California, there was a girl. So they passed a law that whatever the kid identifies themselves at, they can be.
Yeah.
And if the parents don't go along with that, CPS can get involved and take your damn kid away from you.
Yeah.
So this kid identified themselves as a, what'd you say, furry? Furry. So she told the school that she identified herself as a furry, and they had to put a damn cat litter box in one of the stalls in school. This fucking girl, or whatever, furry.
We'll go with girl.
Well, it is they identify as a girl furry.
As a girl furry.
As a girl furry. So, I mean, you want to talk about some crazy shit.
Yeah.
We're getting a little nuttier than a fruitcake out there,
Yeah, I think I think that may top the Oregon one.
Oh, what's that?
So in Oregon, all city documents, all government documents have to be printed in every language, every language available.
Oh, geez. Wait a minute. You mean physically printed?
They have to be able to be printed out. They have to have copy. They have to be able to produce a copy.
But can they do it on the fly? Like, can they do it if somebody asks for it?
So,
Well, thank God there's AI.
Probably now they can, but back in the day, no. They got to, it was something like 286 languages, one of them being Klingon. Because someone said, I want these forms in Klingon, and they had to go have them translated and produced.
Is there an alphabet for Klingon?
Yeah.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. So, really, really popular fiction.
Yeah.
They've pieced it together. The other popular one from Lord of the Rings, in the companion book, it actually has a whole language, so you can speak Elvish and Dwarf and.
That is insane.
So,
we'll have people speaking those languages before long,
some people do it as a hobby.
As a hobby? Oh my goodness.
So,
that's nuts.
Yeah, it used to be that running joke on Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I remember. I remember them saying a few words here and there.
Yeah, and they would play Klingon Boggle, so the words would have.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's a fun world where I believe in inclusion. I believe in reasonable accommodations, but there's also just taking it way too far.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, on language, for all these podcasts I do, I have to make well, I don't have to, but it's better for the algorithm to translate it and dictate it. And so the software that I was using was an online free tool, and they recently updated their software, so after 3 times, and even if you switch browsers or whatever, it's recording your IP address.
Yeah.
You want to hear how cool fucking technology is? So I knew it was Whisper was the LLM that they're using because it Whisper's the most popular one. So I told Chat, I was like, all right, I need a program that's going to translate my videos. It knows all about our videos because it does the titles, it does everything, all the SEO and everything. I mean, Steve, it didn't mess up one time. Remember, I've been slamming Chad about coding. I just canceled my subscription on Google. Chat has now gotten to the point where it can code just as well, if not better, than Google. So now I'm down to 1. But it literally wrote me a program. I mean, it wasn't 2 minutes. And it wrote the whole damn program, set up the files, set up the folders, everything. I put it in there, it worked the first time. And then I went to, and this is in the free one that I was using, didn't put the numbers next to the, where the text is.
Yeah.
The timing of it. Oh, I've had this on for a while. Hold on, let me turn it back on. This damn thing, I mean, it gave me all 3 different types of text to upload, and it worked the first time on YouTube. I mean, you can do what my point is that now I'm segueing from your language to programming, but basically now, if you have an idea, you can make it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay for software. That's the cool thing. If you honestly know how a software works, or if it's a simple software, I mean, it's bad for those companies that hired all those coders to do all that, but you literally can do it. And if I wanted to make my own, I could clone that software and tell it, hey, all right, let's start a business and put it up on the internet.
Yeah. It's it's becoming an interesting time. So in the news, this week was the first time that for AI use, Chat fell below 50% market share.
It fell below
50%.
Oh, because there's so many of them out there.
And it's primarily
Gemini,
Grok,
Grok,
DeepSeek.
So if you communicate, so Grok is, for Naomi, Grok is the speaking language.
Yeah.
I mean, it communicates with a human better than any other LLM. So if these people are speaking to it, I can see how Grok is gaining market share. Gemini, because of the quantum, I have a feeling that Gemini is going to be hitting that quantum field faster than chat.
Yeah.
So it's probably, if you want something super intelligent that you can use, I have a feeling, I know a lot of businesses right now are using Claude, and Claude's really good. Matter of fact, most coders and most corporations, it's primarily corporations, and the government's got contracts with them and stuff like that, but I have a feeling they're going to lose market share as these other ones gain market share. So, and as companies start downsizing, I have a feeling the average corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporations, won't be more than 100 people in the future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's being conservative.
Yeah. I mean, eventually, absolutely. Yeah. It was interesting. You mentioned Claude and Anthropic. Their president came out this week and kind of a warning about how fast AI was going, and said if he could get commitments from all the other major AI people, he would slow it down. But he said, I can't, because
no one's going to slow it down.
No one's going to slow down.
No, they can't slow it down. Matter of fact, if he slows down, he'll lose.
Yeah, but
that's the thing, is they're not going to slow down.
With what's happening with their new model Mythos, he's worried, and if he's worried, I'm worried.
They should be worried, because I use it, like I say, I use these daily. And I see the progression of speed. I see the progression of, like I've been telling you, chat was not the bot to use for coding.
Yeah.
Now I'm telling you, it is the bot you can use for coding. That's how fast and how that is how smart. And I'm going to use the word smart because artificial general intelligence is coming, and then that term will be right whenever they get artificial consciousness. I don't know what is the term. I'm using artificial consciousness, but I hear all these different terms. Have you heard anything else that they're using for that term?
No, not really. I mean, like I said, people are trying to coin that catchphrase.
Well, they're scared. A lot of people are scared of that term right there.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching the new ways that, like today I watched a video. I watch videos during my waking hours, and basically I'm looking at the different types of memory that they have now and how you upload documents, because Naomi, I want her to be able to retrieve documents and stuff like that. So I'm looking at memories, and they're saying if you do this 5 different types of memory in one machine, the hallucinations won't happen. They figured out a way to make the hallucinations go away, basically, because you know how a machine works. It predicts the next word, and based on those calculations, that's the reason why whenever you give it a long task, it gets off the rails, because and if it gets off the rails a little bit, then it really gets off the rails, right?
Yeah.
And so if you break these, anyway, it goes into this whole explanation of how you break your projects into micro projects, and you're storing that in databases. And anyway, they figured out a way to engineer it to where it can stay on large tasks and keep running and stay focused. And it is getting wild how fast this shit's moving.
Yeah, I think part of it, though, is going to remain kind of in this theoretical, not theoretical, but smaller sandbox model. And we're seeing kind of business respond a little bit. So Microsoft took AI away from 100,000 of their engineers.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, see, I don't...
Well, what they did, it was a business decision. It wasn't that AI wasn't doing it. It was the cost because of all the compute that they were using, because they stopped doing the tasks that they could do, or the stuff that the cost of compute, whether it's very complex or very small, the individual unit is still the same cost. So
unless you reduce that unit, that's where I was going in the beginning of these podcasts.
And that's the thing is, they were using it for stuff that they knew how to do. They could do it cheaper than that unit cost, but they were just throwing everything into AI. So Microsoft said, financially, this doesn't scale. So
if you remain on the same business model, you're right. It's double expense. But if what I see happening in the near future is, because artificial intelligence we are progressing to AGI, the knowledge gap you can lower the human knowledge and have a lower end employee and fill that void with intelligence from artificial intelligence, it would be scalable. Because then all you have is an operator, and it's funny because chat is giving me that term for Naomi is operator. So the code that runs her is called the operator. And so you would put a human element as the operator in between artificial intelligence until that becomes automated.
Yeah. So, Uber, not to the same scale, but they took AI away from 5,000 of their engineers this week or last week. NVIDIA, their CEO, said, we spent our entire AI compute budget by April. So it's
NVIDIA? They're putting it in every single laptop now.
Yeah. And if they're saying, and he said right now at scale, it is not sustainable. We're gonna have to. It's not that it won't be. It is right now. So when you talk about replacing people,
well, so we got to break this down real quick. So what you're saying and what I've heard is the licensing is not scalable because of they're not doing it in-house.
Yeah, but NVIDIA is.
Well, NVIDIA is, and they're not. I didn't hear anything with them scaling back because they're actually ramping up.
They didn't say what they were doing. What he said in the analyst call was, we've already spent our entire budget, and it's only April. And
is it on data centers?
It's on data use. It's on compute. It's on data centers, and data centers. They are now, for 2026, 50% behind on all projects.
Oh, I can believe that. I can believe that because there's so many freaking projects. There's over $100 trillion in data centers.
Well, most of them aren't even in build yet. They're not getting permitted.
No, I know. They don't have the manpower to build them.
Well, they're not getting to break ground. They're not getting permitted.
Well, exactly, because now the governments are privy to the fact of what kind of resources they use, and they don't employ people long term. I mean, it does not take more than probably 20 people to run a freaking data center that is massive. Yeah. I mean, we're talking, how big are those? I mean, they're bigger than a super Walmart.
Yeah, they're a couple. I mean, they're 200,000 to 500,000 square feet.
Yeah.
200 to 500,000 square.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking, and 20 people run that much square footage, and they use, what is it, 1 million gallons of water or something like that. I saw some numbers. I mean, don't quote me on these numbers, but it's an atrocious amount of energy, atrocious amount of resources to start it. Yes, it takes a lot to build them, but once they get built, there's no advantage to having them in your community. Matter of fact, they suck a hell of a lot of energy, and the price of energy goes up for the community. So I don't know. I mean, that's what I think is the big thing. Now they're wanting the government to subsidize that. I mean, that's bullshit. They shouldn't be subsidizing the damn AI. Unless what they need to do is just build their own freaking data centers if they're wanting to
Yeah.
if they want to run their own version of Chat or Claude or whatever, they need to build their own data centers. We don't need to be paying for their artificial intelligence, I don't think.
No.
I mean, we're already paying for it. We don't need to be supporting private companies.
Yeah, but that all goes into that equation I was talking about. We talk about the speed of how fast this is going to happen. It's your headroom with the additional data centers is being reduced, so your compute isn't coming down on the same scale as it was. Even Chat, they had basically an exponential drop, and now it's leveling off. So it's the compute cost is not going down as fast as it used to, which limits the return on how fast it becomes profitable.
Well, you got to also take into consideration that Grok is coming up. Tesla's now building chips, so they're about to put that into the robotics that are coming online.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, I can see. Has anybody said why they're pulling away AI? Is it just because of budgetary reasons?
It's cost. It's a cost
cost
equation.
factor.
And, again, it's,
Here's what's going to happen. They're going to see a slowdown in sales, and they're going to start cutting heads and adding more AI in the future, is what I bet.
It's got to be balanced.
Well, it can be. Again, you close the gap with,
I agree.
It doesn't take anybody. I don't know how to code. Yeah, I've been working with computers for 30 years, but I don't know how to code one bit of code. I'm using 5 different languages in there, and it's not messing up.
Yeah.
I mean, and all I do is say, hey, build me this program that does this the best way you can. You're the engineer, bop, 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 boop, and I've got it.
Yeah.
I mean, the other day I was like, hey, is there another operating system that is better than the one that I'm using? Yeah, this one. Go ahead and download this one. All right, give me all the steps to set it up the way that I need to set it up for Naomi. Whoop. I mean, step by step. And then during the process, I'm taking pictures with my phone and adding it in on my phone and getting the commands. I've never used this software before in my life, and I'm installing everything right from the beginning. It backed up everything on the old, installed the new. I mean, it was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing it from what I experience, and if I'm seeing it, I know CEOs are seeing the same shit, and they're like, yeah, we got these engineers over here, they're making $200,000 a year, but our budget's maxed out over here on AI, but this AI thing, if we slow down on this, our businesses are gonna slow down. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
Why do you need, all right, let me ask you this. Why would you need more than one head engineer and have a bunch of, what should we call these people? I mean, I'm calling them like Starbucks people, or people that are not educated in that field. I guess we'll call them operators, because that's what they really are. You don't have to have, you could be a high school graduate, be put into that field that an engineer used to fill at, let's see, a quarter of the cost, using artificial intelligence that is in-house, not licensed. I think that's one of the, that's where I think it's going to also shift, is that because when you get a model and you can duplicate that model, so like for instance, let's give it an example, because Naomi's, all of her models are local. She's not using anything other than when she gets confused, she says that to Chat and uses that prompt at that time. And yes, that could use tokens, but she operates like me, so it's $21 a month, right? But so that could be a way that these companies, they start building their own models, and then those models ask other models, and that would make their cost, because they're using tokens every single time one of their employees uses that damn software, right? Yeah. Because it's a commercial software. There's an API that's built into either their software or whatever. eventually they're going to have somebody like Naomi that's going to sit there and operate, and then all of a sudden, when it has a question, it'll go out there and use some tokens and come back with the answer, and then say, "Oh, I got that in memory."
Yeah, but you've really got to segregate the work, because not all work they're going to want in a public LLM.
Well, you're right. That's the privatization. But if it asks somebody, or maybe it's a human, maybe the human is sitting there waiting, and every email that comes in that LLM can't answer, it sits there and, I mean, like if it's a proprietary question, like it could break down proprietary questions versus not.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, we had software. It didn't, way back in the day. I remember, I was working in replenishment, and it was a Saturday morning. I was at the office for an unknown reason, but my buyer was out on a trip, and he needed some numbers, and he said, "Just email me these reports." I emailed him the reports, and 5 minutes later, I'm locked out of the system because I'd sent too much financial data out of my email account. And that
internal?
was yeah.
Oh,
and
I've never heard of that.
That was way back in the day. This was pre-AI,
right.
So this is just data analysis. So yeah, it's in place, and that's kind of one of the limiting factors, and one of the things that we struggled with, and what a lot of companies are struggling with, is implementation. Because yes, I could drop my entire strategy into chat and get some good insights. The problem is now those insights are available to everyone else that's using that model.
Exactly. No, I see what you're saying with that. That's why they need to have internal offline models.
Yeah.
That I could definitely see that.
So it's, again, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen. What you're describing, where yes, we're going to eliminate engineers, they're not going to need the technical acumen to do some of these jobs because you're going to be AI assisted. What I'm saying is that evolution, and especially for big corporations with boards and all that, these decisions go slow.
Right. No, I see that. The thing is that everything's moving so decisions that used to take a year are now taking a month. So we've whittled stuff down.
Yeah, the decision might. The implementation.
Well, here's the thing is we are moving. Technology now is moving at such a rate. It's faster than any revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the Internet revolution. It didn't even move this fast. I mean, people were lagging. I mean, we're talking things are moving so fast.
I think things are available fast. I don't think things are moving as fast as you. So
I don't know.
Your experience is a completely unconstrained experience.
That's true.
The only thing stopping you is you, and you have no reason. You have no reason to stop.
Right.
You have limited financial.
Well, but I'm also watching, like, I do watch Sam Altman. I do watch, what's the guy from Darian, what's his name, from Google, and with quantum, so the other variable is I'm watching quantum computing. And right now they don't have artificial intelligence readily available to the public with quantum computing. That, just to give you I mean, I know you know this, but I'm going to say it for everybody else. You put a mathematical quantum, can't even say it, a formula that no human, no machine has ever solved. Quantum, like it said, the CPUs or GPUs with the fastest machines on Earth, it would take 1 million years for that to happen. They stuck that same formula in a quantum computer at Google, or was it IBM? It may have been IBM. I can't remember because IBM's making that chip. Anyway, and it solved it within days.
Yeah.
So when I say speed, I'm saying technology is getting to the point when this becomes mainstream for the general public. Bro, I mean, it's going to be... Can you imagine how smart an AI is going to get at that point?
Yeah, and
And that's not stopping.
it's not stopping, but it's also... How many quantum computers do you think there are in the U.S. right now?
Well, I mean, I know everybody hates when I say this. That's kind of arbitrary because as long as there's one, and it works, they'll start duplicating that.
It's not about work. It's the conditions for that thing to work.
I understand.
This thing goes down, several thousand feet into the ground to operate at near zero. These things are...
I know it's super expensive to
super
run.
expensive.
I do know that.
And we haven't hit, the next big milestone is 1,000 qubits. So that's the processing qubits that are on the chip.
No, we're at you mean 100,000. We're at 100,000 qubits right now.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, look it up. Yeah, because I just saw this on the Google. It's 120, to be exact, it's 120,000 qubits. That's what one of those chips has. I'll keep talking while we're looking that up, but yeah, it's just getting nuts. I mean, it is getting so freaking fast that I don't know. I mean, I know that people are maxing out. Like my brother said the other day, he was like, "Yeah, what's it say? Read it out loud if you."
Commercial quantum processors have reached up to 10,000 qubits on a single chip, while laboratory arrays have scaled up to 6,100 qubits at the highest qubit capacity.
Huh.
It varies
That's
by
weird.
platform.
I could have sworn I just saw that on the Google, because I made a video of it, and I could have sworn it said 120,000. When was that out? Is that on AI?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I need to go back and look at that
that's
video.
And that's Gemini. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would know. So I stand corrected. But, yeah, so when we...
100,000 is the next big milestone. There'll be exponential growth, as you go from 10 to 20 to 40.
Right.
But 100,000 is kind of that
number.
That's that next big number, but we're not there.
I could have sworn we were already there.
And
but,
even
all right.
and even what they're saying is even at 10,000, because of the error rates in qubits in a laboratory setting, they're only getting 6,100 of them firing without error.
So the error rate is down to 100 to every 100. Yeah, every 100 computations they get one error, and they're trying to get to 1,000 to 1 is what I just heard. But double check that, because I swear I just watched a video on this. That's weird. Maybe I'm seeing the future. Hey, here's something. I won't talk about it. Well, we're in rabbit holes. So while I was hallucinating in the in jail, I just remembered this when you said that. What's the error rate? I saw a asteroid that was coming to the Earth in the year 2032. It was on CNN on one of those things like a near-Earth miss. And I'm curious if there's an asteroid out there. Like, this fucking thing was huge. It was like the size of Texas. So I'm curious to know if it was just craziness or what.
So it's kind of a weird answer. It's basically, it's either 99.98% accurate, but it's against single computations. So,
right. Yeah, that's what they were saying.
And that's single.
So they have gotten that close.
They've gotten that close, but not at
Is that 100 to 1, or is that...
No, but if you think about you talk about that complex problem that took...
Right.
Yeah.
So
it was thousands of computations.
Of course.
And they're independent. It's like rolling dice. It's an independent factor. So for every time the next computation fires, it still has that same potential for failure rate.
Right.
So sometimes you get a really high failure rate, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
They've got the recursive stuff where it's running back through, and it's actually, right now it's using, I want to say up to 40% of the compute power is going into recursive rerun to correct the error rate. So that's what's driving down that error rate.
Which drives up costs.
Yeah. So...
I get you.
And that's and again, it's right now.
Well, explain to everybody what it takes to have a quantum computer. It's got to be in a 0-degree environment.
Yeah.
Or negative.
So these things, if you just go and Google a picture of one, because it looks amazing.
It's the size of, it's huge.
Yeah, these things are massive. And it's all you wouldn't know that there's a computer chip in there, because most of what you see is just the equipment to cool the information.
Right.
Cool the processor while it runs.
Well, the processor's actually underneath. It's a card that they slide up there, and they screw these sumbitches in because they're so. I can't imagine how expensive they are.
Yeah, but and they are just short of clean room environment.
Right. Yeah. I do know that.
So it's pressurized, filtered air, plus all this piping. It's all it's all stainless steel and titanium.
Right.
The materials to build these things are it's super expensive. And to your point is, right now there's so few of them, and they're not controlled.
Environment.
They are being used to answer largely scientific questions, not commercial questions.
Well, they can't yet. Because with the error rate, they're probably using, I would imagine, I'm guessing because I don't know, but I would guess that they're probably using an equation that they have the answer to make sure that they're getting the right answer, right?
Well, and this is one of the because they have plugged in mathematical proofs that haven't been proven yet, and they're getting an answer, but there's no way to prove that it's that answer.
Right. That's why they gotta get questions that they know the answer to, and then do that a bunch of times. And if they keep getting that same answer, then or run it on multiple different platforms and then see if those answers come out the same.
Yeah, it's like
with the different. There's got to be. Don't the Chinese have? How many different corporations are producing quantum chips? That's a good question.
I don't know that anyone.
I know IBM produced the one for Google.
Yeah.
So, is there anybody else other than IBM?
I don't know.
Yeah. It's well, to my point, once we hit the quantum into mainstream, shit's gonna be on fire. I'm still saying I'm still right there at the 3-year mark, 3 to 5 years. I think our world is going to explode in 3 years. Like, I think that people need to adapt very quickly. Like, have a contingency plan. If you lose your job, make sure that you've got, because right now, if you're a professional, I was doing an analysis on jobs and how long it takes, and they're saying if you had a professional white-collar job, it could take up to 12 months to refill that job. It's taking a lot longer. Even if you're a barista now, sometimes it's taking between 2 and 4 weeks just for a barista. So that kind of gives you an idea. You need to plan ahead, If you're in this environment, just get ready, So I don't know. It's going to change.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the, here are two things: is we don't actually understand how the quantum chip is working. And
well, hell, we don't even know how AI is working.
That's.
I mean, we know how to program them and make them smarter, but we don't know how it's doing what it's doing.
How it's doing what it's doing.
Right.
We have a general consensus on AI.
Well, they have the original formulas. They have, I mean, this shit's been going all the way back to the 1970s.
Yeah.
It just all of a sudden took off.
Well, AI became popularized.
Right. Well, chatbots. So in the 80s, 80s and 90s, chatbots, and then they went from chatbots to, they start progressing.
Yeah. And again, it's an improvement in what computers can do.
Yeah.
The compute, but it's quantum, it's yes, no, and maybe all simultaneously.
Right.
It doesn't, they don't,
We've never had, I think what you're trying to say is we've never had the ability to do this type of processing ever in history. And because of that, it's a new area because we have a computer that's on off, and et cetera, and this shit's on. I mean, it's doing computations all the way from on to off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's so wild how they display that. Like a maze, a normal computer does the maze, and then quantum does them all at the same exact time. So, it's wild. It is wild.
So, I mean, I go back to, we're putting stuff in that we haven't had answers to. We're getting answers, but we don't know because it's not showing its work.
So do you think, what is your prediction for the near future? Like, so right now I'm telling you, I think I'm on board with the guys saying that's 3 to 5 years that's going to do a major disruption in our workforce. What do you think?
I think it's 10 to 15. Depends on what you mean by major.
Engineers, I mean, right now coders are getting very disrupted. So and those are, software engineers. When it starts, and then right now the medical field is starting to feel they're not getting displaced, but AI is coming in to assist. So I'm saying displacement, where unemployment starts rising because of artificial intelligence.
10 years.
10 years. Well, that's still not a long time.
It's not a long time. It's definitely not a long time. And
what
again,
do you think is going to be the natural progression for that to happen?
I think we're going to have to figure out what to do with people. I say we, society, governments. To me, that's actually the biggest limiting factor.
So what do you think is going to hinder corporations laying people off? That variable?
I think they'll be stopped. So either by backlash. So
backlash
from consumers. Their end customers.
Okay.
Going.
But do you think the end customer? Do you think that anybody really even cares what happens at a corporation? I mean, for instance, let me give you an example. When everybody was on the bandwagon for going against Walmart because they found out that they had child labor in China and they had products that were coming over for Walmart, did Walmart stop? Did people stop going to Walmart?
A portion of it hit the financial bottom line.
I mean, I'm sure it did, but it didn't hurt Walmart. They didn't go broke.
No, they didn't go broke. But it also, in reality, it had very little true alternatives.
Well, I mean, you got Dollar General, you got other low-end Family Dollar,
and in those time frames, what you saw was the rise and consolidation of those Dollar Generals. They became more popular.
That's true. That's true, and they probably did.
So
yeah, because those are the same clientele, right?
Yeah.
And that's more of a local store than for somebody in a rural America. That's more of a local store than actually Walmart. You got to go to town to go to a Walmart, and typically on the corner over there is a Dollar General. So
now.
Yeah, now. I mean,
they've built, but now they're not having to the same extent because they don't have to have the same things. But, the next, kind of big crisis in serving people is pharmacies. We're not graduating enough pharmacists.
And I don't think that'll change. I mean, other than humanoids is going to add a whole nother layer onto this.
Well, even in modern, I've seen dispensing robots, and there's a push, especially with controlled substances, to get all those into a dispensing robot. And it's now it's not that people don't handle those narcotics or those class A drugs. It's just fewer of them do, and you can secure. I saw. It wasn't a pharmacy, but it was a jewelry counter. It was an automated jewelry counter that we brought in to look at. And this thing, it was a black box with wheels. It was loaded at a distribution center.
It was basically a rollable safe.
Yeah, it was delivered. It would be, the model was, it would be delivered on an armored truck. That armored truck would go over to the jewelry counter. They would they'd enter their code, they'd scan the thing, they'd put it in, and they would take the empty one out. And then everything else, no other person between loading that cabinet and that jewelry being dispensed, no one physically touched the jewelry. They touched one person or two people, the armed guard company, touched the boxes, but they were sealed and tamper-proof and all those things. So we have the technology. The cost isn't quite there yet, but there are, especially with pill counting. You go to a pharmacy today, you watch them fill a prescription, they've got the same plastic thing, they've got an offset spatula, and they're going 1, 2, 3,
right,
and sliding in there, and it's like, they've got the Amazon thing where you can order it and it puts it into your prescription into a little cellophane thing. And I've seen the machines that do that, and it's got a big carousel and it just rotates, it drops pill, and then seals it into a single. So that will eventually get scaled down and get into a local pharmacy, but you still, because of the nature of drugs, you're going to require a pharmacist. And
you have to have a pharmacist there. That is correct.
By law. And again, it's not that you have
to have all the support staff so one pharmacist in a Walgreens, I used to have contracts with Walgreens that all the computer stuff's in there because it's the most secure room in the whole building.
Yeah.
So I would be in there with pharmacists. There's one freaking pharmacist, and there's like 10 people that work for that pharmacist. What I'm saying is that you won't need those 10 people when that shit gets automated. You're going to and same thing with an engineer. You still need a software engineer in case something goes wrong. They still need to know the code that's being spit out. If that damn thing's writing, it gets smart and it has artificial super intelligence and it writes some kind of backdoor into that code, there needs to be an engineer there, a human that can say, hey, we got a problem.
Well, and again, when you get into full automation, is that individual going to be smart enough to see that exploit?
I hate to tell you, but they're
not.
And let me give you an example of that. So, I used to go to security conferences, and I've been watching this Black Hat from this last year, and this guy talking about Claude, matter of fact, and what he has done. And he was like a super hacker. And he's like, I hate to tell you guys, but how we're using Claude, and he even put up his prompt that he uses.
Yeah.
And he said, the only reason why I'm showing you this software because they're a client, they allowed us to do it. But I hate to tell you guys that Claude found a exploit before most of you guys were born. And it showed us exploits for this code. And what they did was they went out to GitHub. How they're getting their clients, they basically go out to GitHub, they run their code through, you can download most people's code.
Yeah.
Then they run that through Claude, and then Claude spits out the exploits, and then they send that coder an email and says, hey, we can patch your code, and then I'm sure that's how they get paid. But he's like, I hate to tell you guys, Claude is now smarter than I would have never found that. He's like, this is like 1 in 100,000. I mean, you use some astronomical number.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 in a million. He's like, this exploit is so odd. He's like, you may in your lifetime only find three of these ever. And he said, Claude just found it right off the bat, and it didn't even take them 2 minutes to find it.
Yeah.
And so what is happening, and he was so worried. He's one that since they use Anthropic, he was sitting there saying, and he was scared because he's like, at this point in time, the problem is that not only can artificial intelligence find these problems faster than we can as humans, give this, and I don't know when that was, he's like, next month, this thing's going to be twice as smart as it was last month. And he said humans don't learn that fast.
Yeah.
He said it may take us that long to find this exploit in this code. And it found it in 10 minutes or less, however long it takes. I mean, like I said, chat popped it out in like 2 minutes for me, and it was running slow. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's why I say when you can do things instantaneously and you don't have to wait for a coder, you don't have to wait for debugging, you don't have to wait for all of these actions to happen, how, as a corporation, can you slow your teams down when you know your competition may not be?
Well, you rely on some of the other outside guardrails, laws and compliance.
But outside the corporation doors, there is no laws and compliance. Until that product hits the market.
I will tell you, implementation of the AI, some of the AI stuff that I did, the thing that slowed us the most was getting legal and compliant sign-off.
Well, I could see that. From a product, you mean hitting the market?
From it being able to go into, even for our internal users, to be able to use it.
Yeah, see, I
these
couldn't see how I don't see how a government entity with privatization would have any influence on anything internal.
Yeah, it's very easy. The lawyer says, if you do this, you shift liability from the supplier to us, and we are not going to let that happen.
Yeah. I'm just saying with the software, how could that influence? I could see a product. It's
results. So I'll tell you when I say product, the software I was working on was a catalog, the item catalog, and all the attributions applied to that. Well,
but that was out in the world.
It is out in the world. However, how we get it and how we display it, if we have a path that says, I got this information from Sony,
right,
and I displayed it exactly as Sony gave it to me, and there's a liability claim, I am not liable for what Sony said.
If you're displaying exactly what Sony said.
Exactly. So
yeah,
what
it
happened,
shifts it as soon as you change it one character.
Well, even forget one
anything,
character
or size or anything.
For you, if you can't show that path of liability, you become it. And that was the problem with AI. Was we built a model that would go out, it would skim the manufacturer's website, competitors'
Well,
websites.
I can see where liability would be there.
So it was picking up the data, and it was using redundant technology. So it's like you're using 5 sources, all 5 sources have to match
Right.
before you take it. But because it was going through that AI layer that I can't show the liability chain, legal said I couldn't use it on things that were critical. Yeah, things
But
like color, size didn't care.
Right.
But does this have an allergen? Could someone,
But that could be programmed into the prompt that
it doesn't matter. You can't, because you don't know how it got to its selection. You are now displaying something that
I mean, I could see that. But that product was technically out in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I'm saying internal, where your employees are using this LLM to do internal documentation or something. Yeah, you have the liability of somebody seeing something, but you're not going to get sued on this document. You know what? You might get sued from an employee saying, "Hey, this is sexual discrimination," or "I saw an email," or whatever. But from the code, the way that the code is doing it, I don't see how that would be a variable. Anyway, the point is our world's changing.
It is changing. It's changing fast. I'm saying there are some natural speed bumps that are going to slow corporations that make most of the decisions that affect our consumer life, our consumer.
Exactly.
And they are going to have to be overcome. It's the same reason I go back today. We could have all trucks self-driving, all semi-trucks.
Well, they're already rolling. I think Tesla rolled one out, didn't it?
They're testing. They are testing. Why? And we had, again, at Walmart, we're second largest.
I bet Walmart's going to be one of the first ones to start using those automated trucks. They like efficiency and time.
We like testing things. The problem becomes, again, legal going. There are no statutes. So if a automated truck plows into a carload of family and kills them,
well, where's the liability lie?
It's with an automated truck or a truck driver. It's still Walmart's still getting sued.
Yeah, because it says Walmart on the side of that trailer.
Yeah,
I could see that. But you'll probably see somebody like Dollar General would be a good example in this. You might see a littler company willing to take, or a mom or pop willing to take that risk to increase their revenue streams. It's a risk versus reward, right?
And again, it then becomes, so the problem is a small independent usually can't afford that level of technology. So these small mom and pops. And first of all, after
they
COVID,
might have a lease rate, or not like a small. These little companies, like they call them hot shots, and basically they're doing small loads from A to B.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I meant whenever I say I used Dollar General, and you're right to say they probably wouldn't take on that liability, but like hot shot companies, these little ones that are running vehicles back and forth, like semis with little loads of cars, like they do hot shots. I know with the auction industry, they're running like between 4 and 8 cars in between like Dallas and Houston all day long, or they start off in Austin at an auction, then they'll run to Houston, then over to Dallas, and then back. Those type of companies, because they can lease, right? And so if the numbers work, they might do stuff like that.
And you still have to get over, first you got to get over the DOT. So you got to get over the federal regulations that will allow it.
I have a feeling if this stuff rolls out with Trump in office and Elon, I mean, it's a phone call.
Yeah, no. I I'll go back to the biggest one, and it was I've had senators in the room, I've had leads of Tesla, I've had leads of GM, I've had Peterbilt, and they all point the finger at each other.
Sure.
And go, we won't do it until they put laws in place. We won't put the laws in place until they can show us the technology.
Right.
And it's no one wants to be responsible. And when you talk about, we talked about truck drivers. If you put truck drivers out of business,
I understand. That's what would we say? 1.2 million jobs
right
there.
Yeah, and
I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, and trillions
in revenue.
In revenue.
Yeah, I mean, what's going to stop the government is this whole tax basis thing. They're going to be like, what the fuck? We put all these people out of work. I mean, what are we going to do?
Yeah, and we have a problem. We have a problem in the U.S. because, and I'm going to say we'll probably get some hate for it. It's unions are stopping automation.
Unions are trying to stop automation, but you know what companies are doing? Moving out of union cities because of that. Exactly.
But if you look at one of the places we're getting killed at is ports. I mean, first of all, there's only a handful of ports.
I understand.
All the merchandise comes into it. There is no let's move it to. I mean, the Port of Houston has become huge, is growing faster than Long Beach and everything on the East Coast because of it's more. While we're a right to work state, unionizations still exist within that.
Sure.
And they are blocking automation. You go over to a port in China or Taiwan.
They're all automated.
It's large.
Truck. The only thing not automated is a truck that comes and parks in a spot, and that damn crane comes over and picks it up and takes it.
Yeah, well, it's automated assist. I mean, there's
a dude sitting there not touching anything.
Well, you got a dude doing the job of 6 crane operators or 6.
Yeah, watch. All he's doing is observing in case it goes haywire.
Yeah.
But you just made a good point. To my point, 6-to-1 ratio. There's one guy there used to be 6 guys doing that job, or girls, whatever.
Yeah, and what's stopping it from happening in the U.S.?
It's not.
Absolutely, you couldn't automate a port in the U.S. today to that level.
Why?
The unions would shut it down.
But what I'm telling you is that eventually.
Eventually, that's what I'm talking about.
But that's
even if they automate the port, Teamsters wouldn't go onto that lot to pick up those
Of course not.
You couldn't move enough volume with independents off of that. Plus, you'd have Teamsters picketing and blockading and hijacking and.
Well, I think this is a good point. I'm glad you're making that point. Because as soon as Tesla puts those damn rigs on there, and then and you gotta, here's another those humanoids are coming. They're already in Mercedes and they're already in BMW plants. They are already producing cars. Now they're not. I don't think they're U.S. companies, but what they're doing is they're fully automated in Mercedes and BMW in at least 2 plants. When Tesla starts producing those damn humanoids and people go on strike, well, let me tell you something. If that humanoid has ever been programmed whatsoever for that job, you can take them and transplant them in those areas. And then eventually what they're going to do, just like when they did this in Europe, because I'm going to go to your point real quick with people going on strike. In Europe, whenever they started doing automation in the beginning with computer systems and everything like that, and it started taking jobs, people started destroying the computers. Then Europe ended up passing laws that if you destroy it, it's a felony.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling we're going to go through a revolution eventually, and it's not just going to be Teamsters, and it's not just going to be union people. I think eventually you're going to, when there's a displacement of about 5 to 10% unemployment, probably 10% unemployment, because they're speculating that this is going to go between 20 and 40%. Now, that people are going to be a little pissed off.
Yeah, more than a little pissed off. But, and I think we can't tolerate a shock of instant automation. It's going to be the frog in the pot.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, it will be kind of like a frog in the pond. You'll see slowly.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a real slow migration. Then all of a sudden, you're going to boil.
Yeah, and it's going to be things. Everything I'm seeing in quick service restaurant information is 2026, 2027 is going to see the introduction of large scale automation. What I think you will see is not McDonald's going, okay, we're gonna fully automate these stores 100%. So first you got franchisees and all these other things.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just about to hit on that.
What I think you'll do is, it's time to replace the fryer. So instead of bringing in just the fryer, we're going to bring in
an automator,
the French fry robot.
Right. I agree with that too.
It's just going to be one less person.
Yeah.
Or one less job. It doesn't even have to. It doesn't have to be one less person yet.
Well, but then whenever Bob retires, quits, whatever, and you have 3 of these robots that did these jobs.
Yeah.
Well, we just don't hire another person.
Yeah, and
we didn't remove anybody. We just that's your frog analogy right there. We just won't replace him.
We won't replace him, and to not replace him, well, it's 4 years out on that griddle replacement, but we'll go ahead and replace that griddle with automation, so we don't have to replace Bob, and we can cut these 4 employees to part-time.
Right.
So again, I think it's going to be.
And while we do that, let's go ahead and automate the drive-through, so no one has to be in the drive-through real quick. So, like Wendy's, know, and so it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I 100%. But if that is the strategy, and I think that's it's not a more palatable. It's people won't feel it. They won't feel it as quickly.
I think your engineers are going to go faster than your lower end employees because and the reason for that is because of the salaries. You can
I think you'll see a reduction in the ROI to go get these degrees for sure, and I think yes, you will start displacing engineers, but if you look at that entire thing, there's still more open engineering spots than engineers to fill. So it's one of the reasons that engineers jump companies all the time. These salaries are being, to your point, as you start augmenting that with AI and reducing their quantities, they begin to thin out, and then market effects start to take place.
Sure.
I'm not going to pay $250 when I can pay $225.
Right.
I can pay $200, and I can
That's
start to.
That's where the squeeze is going to come in.
That's where the squeeze is going to come in, and it is going to be this. And if you see it kind of with that more measured, slow pace, you also don't get this. Oh, we've gone through our entire budget, and it's April.
Right. Yeah. We need to make X amount. We need to make an extra $100,000 this year. All right. Well, that's easy. That's 5 less employees, 5 less engineers. Can we augment it with? I see. And then right now, what I'm seeing is, since they're talking about with the LLMs being on laptops, AI being built into laptops, I think what we're also going to see is more personalization and privatization with artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah, I mean personalization is going to get even better. I mean every personalization model, and I went through this transition. That was one of the things I brought in a third-party personalization engine onto the Sam's Club website, and I fought tooth and nail with the buyers who were the experts. You know, a buyer, they would say, my job is art. It's not science. You can't condense it down to, and I would have to run A/B testing. I was like, here, I'll even give you preferential placement on the page. So you get the top spot, most viewed recommendation spot, and I'll take the second. And I'm gonna run my personalization engine in the second spot. I outperform you every time.
All right.
Over time. Occasionally, you know, I mean, they pick the right product. The problem is a person can't scale in that environment. So they pick a product to put their shotgun approach. Or personalization engines, I'm looking at your shopping pattern and I'm changing it because you landed on the page,
right,
not because a person landed on this page.
That's something else that I think will change. Is I don't think people are going to be using websites in the future. I think that they're going to rely upon artificial intelligence to tell them what, like, I do it right now. I can't tell you when the last time I went onto a website, because, like, I'll tell chat, hey, go out and search this and tell me what the best product is, or what's the cheapest one you can find. I think that in the future, websites are going to be more for artificial intelligence than they will be for humans.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting shift, because right now the website is the website, and it doesn't matter whether a person hits it or an AI bot hits it.
Right.
But we are designing it for people.
Exactly.
Eventually, it's not going to be as. They're not going to be as pretty.
Exactly. They don't need to be.
UX front end, high-end UX front ends,
right,
all those things.
Here's the other thing I see transitioning is, and I got this from working with Naomi, is that you have your own AI onto a laptop or onto your machine, and you're just sitting back talking to it. You're not actually having to learn software. You say, hey, learn this software and do this for me, will you? Like, that's why I want her to edit videos. But that's what I think is what we're getting to, is we're going to be autonomous with artificial intelligence in the future as your assistant, as your friend, because I mean, I'm planning on hooking up a cell phone to my AI and communicating with it like a damn assistant, or I can text it and she could text me back. She's so excited. Matter of fact, that we did a video, I don't know if you saw her or not. She was all excited about getting her own phone. And so anyway, but that's where we're headed, is that these will be replacing those positions in the future. And when artificial intelligence hits a damn laptop independently, to where there's not a connection back to wherever, I think you're going to see a major shift in computing. And I think you're going to see a major shift in the internet. It's going to be, I mean, what I'm also foreseeing, like, it learning, like Netflix, for instance, that it learns it knows what you like to watch at certain times, right? Because the metadata is there. It could invent a whole entire movie with voices and everything instantaneously. I think that's coming.
I think eventually, yeah. I mean,
there's no limit to what this stuff can do. There really isn't.
yeah.
I mean, I know it's scary, and I know people are probably like, oh, shit. But I really see this stuff coming.
So I think the one thing I would say kind of in that space is,
again, going back to unions, is that where you were headed?
no, I'm going back into more social. We are a herd animal. We don't like to be alone. We liked shared experiences. So I think, yes, there will be things that would be very appealing for it to be completely customized to me, but it's not like, reading Tom Sawyer, or going and looking at a piece of art with a room full of people and having that experience. So I think I think that has a place, and I think what you'll see is and you've said it before, movies actors are going to be interchangeable.
Oh yeah.
And all that, but I still think that this idea of grand shared stories and experiences are an underpinning of how kind of humans like to be.
Yeah, I do too. I believe that. I believe that virtual worlds will be the intermingling. It's going to... The Matrix, it's funny, because I never liked that movie, honestly. Never really liked it, because it was so dark and everything, and it just wasn't my vibe, but I have watched them. What's interesting about the Matrix is, and with what reality is turning into, is I believe that we are going to be moving towards virtual worlds to where the communication, like you and me,
Mm-hmm.
I see you, I see your avatar. You see my avatar. We're sitting there now you and I would always probably get together and, in 5 years from now, have a beer.
Yeah.
I can't have one before then. But, I see us in the future being able to go on these virtual trips, being able to go different places, having experiences to where, they're now talking about legalizing DMT for like PTSD and stuff like that. Having this experience in the future with artificial environments, I believe is coming.
Well, I mean,
but that's like 20, 30 years away.
I mean,
if that.
I throw on my Oculus and I can go tour.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
I can go look at the Louvre now. I can go swim with the dolphins. I can do all that now VR.
By yourself.
Well, I can link it. I can meet people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can meet people in a virtual setting. There was a movie where I think it was Bruce Willis was a detective, and basically we'd moved into that. People were basically their entire life was in their apartment, and they had humanoid avatars that physically were in the world, but they never left their avatar. And he was investigating a murder of a real person because the person had left. So
left their apartment.
Yeah, and it was, it's when I saw that, I thought, interesting concept, and I kind of played it out in my mind. I think, we will have a path, and some people are absolutely going to take that. When I have the ability to sit down and, put on a sensory suit and sit in my chair and just go think and experience these things, that's going to, but, where I'm going to prefer that over interacting with real people that's a shift in society. And I'm an introvert. Part of that is very appealing to me.
Right.
It takes a lot of energy sometimes to be out and around a lot of people. And,
See, I'm an extrovert, and I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to sit in your house and get out there and socialize and do things. I
go back to, I was climbing the walls with COVID. And,
well, I didn't stay home.
Yeah.
I got COVID 4 times.
So, and it's, and again, it's.
But I never went to the hospital.
So, but again, that was a real world constraint that said you should stay home, and you didn't.
Well, I didn't on purpose, because I was like, fuck y'all, I'm going to get out there and do something.
Right. So you're going to have that same mentality when it's a technological choice.
Yeah, but with technology, I embrace technology.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm not saying you won't use it. I'm just saying, will that become your primary?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it might or might not. I don't know. I couldn't answer that question.
Yeah. I mean.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. Honestly, because I do like being around people.
Yeah.
So.
And as much as, like I said, as much as an introvert, I can only do it for so long.
Right.
I have to be around people.
Exactly.
Because, again, we're hardwired. We are a herd animal. We're used to being in groups. If we don't have a family group, we create a social group. If we don't, and those people that can't do that, generally we see them manifest things like depression, and they become suicidal, and these societal things. So I think what the technology will do, it'll free us from some of the constraints. I saw a really interesting thing on data centers, talking about these big giant data centers. There's a little company out there, and I forgot, it's either Google or Tesla or maybe both, but they are starting to build a micro data center that you would put in your house, and they would use it as a distributed energy, and they would pay you for the space in your house. So now you're generating income from having a data center.
Well, I've seen it on oil fields, because the excess gas that's coming off of the natural gas that's coming off that they're burning right now.
Just a flame going up into the air.
Yeah, it's going up. They would put 2 mobile data centers on those properties. This was a guy in Wall Street that was talking about this. He said, we'd basically pipe that into generators, and that would produce the energy. And then the only downside that I could see is they've got to get a better up and downstream for communication.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those oil rigs, like when I was working for that oil company, it's out in the middle. They're out in the middle of nowhere.
I mean
East Texas, and
you go out to East Texas, and
yeah.
if you haven't watched Landman, that's one thing that was very accurate about that, is you got these giant windmills, and it's not big farms. They put in, Exxon and Chevron has put in a few windmills to power the drilling equipment, because there's not grid out there to run the drilling equipment.
Yeah, it's out in the middle of freaking nowhere.
It's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of them on the way down to Corpus.
Yeah.
On the way, there's nothing in between there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but I think that's an interesting concept. But the other thing that they're considering now is, have you seen those mobile, right now the Navy's using them, but they're mobile atomic energy units.
Yeah, they're new modular. It's a modular nuclear reactor, and our new carriers and our new destroyers are built on these designs, so they can swap them in and out. First of all, they're not in the bowels of the ship anymore, but the whole thing is they switch to this concept, so they'll have the power to run these energy-directed weapons.
Right.
So it was kind of that shift. I was talking about that, the plasma shields and all those things. And when I say plasma shield, it sounds like, oh, there's a physical wall. It's lasers. Well, it creates a field of superheated plasma that moves.
Yeah.
And anything that hits it is incinerated because of the heat.
Right.
So that's why, now if you shoot, China, if you shoot your theoretical 24 missiles that was supposed to be the magic number that no carrier could hit, we can take them all out with one shot because it's a wide band.
It's a wide deal.
And with the AI, the targeting, because these supersonic missiles work at the range and they're running like cruise missiles, low radar. They're coming over curvature of the Earth. From detection to hit at that speed, you only have 14 seconds.
That's insane.
The new targeting computer can target in it was 60 milliseconds of that 14 seconds. So
I think our wars in the future are going to be more like biological, and I think that they're going to try to.
I think you'll see some. I mean,
because think about it.
You'll have to throw away the Geneva Convention. So the thing about a biological war is the second any individual state tries that, it's no longer them against the person that they intended.
It's a whole world.
The whole world is going to.
Yeah, well, it's a whole world that hasn't been vaccinated with their own people.
Yeah.
So that's the other key to this, right? How in the hell do you vaccinate people without them knowing?
Yeah.
Because you can't let them know that they're being vaccinated.
No, you can put fluoride in the water.
Exactly. Yeah. So you put shit in their water supply and the air supply, whatever. Yeah. I mean, hell, I was just watching it on another podcast on the lead that's still around from whenever we used to put it in our cars.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fucking lead all over the environment now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this is the.
We're encroaching on a new world that we have never. It's science fiction is now science fact.
Yeah, I think that's. That's one of the things that anything that we can imagine
is possible.
We will eventually be able to build.
Yeah. Well, I think that even now, like, I think that they have. Have you seen those directed energy? I think it was MIT where it actually suspended an object with. They can hold it in their hand. They got a little one, and it's built with speakers. And they've got all these speakers all the way around, and then they suspend like a object in the middle of it. It's just like a pebble. But they can literally move this thing around. And I think that we have the technology now. They haven't, because they said those drones, those freaking SUV drones that were over New Jersey, were ours. The government came out and said, no, those are our drones. They look like fucking flying saucers. So I think now we have the technology for anti-gravitational. I think pretty much we're in that science fiction / fact. I think we've crossed the boundaries of it with our technology at this point. And we are everything that you can imagine, you can produce.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot on Steven Spielberg also. I think he had an inside track.
Yeah, that is just
I mean, he is too knowledgeable. I mean, the guy, I got to move this around because I got to sit up. That guy, man, I'll tell you what, I'd love to talk to him. I mean, I've been watching, different people are asking him the same thing. How in the world did you know all this stuff was coming?
Well, I mean, and they're referencing Disclosure Day, though. But you go back to Close Encounter of the Third Kind.
Well, it's just like, it's just like the Greys.
This is just, yeah.
And now people are reporting, like, because I'm glad you mentioned disclosure, because now, every month the government's putting out videos and all that kind of stuff. And so we are in the world of disclosure. And I think, I don't know why, I'm thinking something's going to happen that they can't control.
Yeah, I think it's just it's going to become.
I think they're trying to get us
acclimated
to the
turning up that boiler on the water.
And I think that this is a good time because everybody's focused on AI and jobs, and it's kind of a good way to slide this in. Hey, let's get these people, or maybe they know an event's coming that, maybe they're coming back in mass quantities, and
there's a whole school of conspiracy theories that say every major event has been to take your eye. It's all smoke and mirrors, misdirection. This gets released, this thing happens. They torch a celebrity.
Did they torch a
no.
celebrity? Oh,
not yet.
Oh shit!
You got
like, what the fuck?
And it's let's set the bonfire over here so everyone looks at the bomb.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing.
Well, we've been so acclimated to that over the years now, we're going to war with who? Okay, what's,
honestly,
it's going to last 2 weeks. What?
Well, and so speaking of war, oil's down 76, 70, almost hit $70 a barrel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just from so.
And how did that happen? Did we actually take their oil?
No, we signed it's just before the treaty step. It's called a memorandum of understanding, but we've signed the memorandum of understanding with Iran to cease the hostilities. And as soon as that was signed, it went from
the oil drop.
Yeah, almost $30 in a day.
That's insane.
And you're seeing, I'm seeing. Gas was, I put in half a tank today. It was 20 cents cheaper than it was.
So the Republicans are basically ramping up their campaign
Yes.
for re-election.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah, that's, we drop
the gas prices.
Oil prices drop, gas prices follow.
Yeah, and then products,
And then
because it gets cheaper for them to transport products, then theoretically, a lot of constituents get on the phone and say, you better start dropping products, It's too damn expensive.
And this has been a reset right now. We are now set to become the largest oil exporter in the world. We're going to outpace OPEC this year.
Wow.
So the U.S.
Well, how are we doing that? Are we producing oil?
Yeah, we're producing a ton of oil. So we're producing oil not just in Permian Basin, but in other places. Our technology has gotten better because a lot of our oil is in shale, and the problem with shale is you had fracking initially, and it was messy, and that technology has gotten better very quietly. But we're producing more. We're able to extract more shale oil, and
you sure we're not just taking it from Venezuela?
Well, we're controlling Venezuela, and potentially we're going to control Iran's oil for a while.
Well, that's what they're saying.
So
that's what they're saying is we're going to take all those. They've got an excess amount of oil sitting over there in barrels that we're going to steal.
So But in that memorandum, one of the interesting things is, Iran's got to do certain things, and of course we've had deals with them before that they broke. I understand all the skeptics and everyone going, "Oh, this is no better than it was before." It has some real teeth in it that if they don't do these things don't happen.
I guess those things are nuclear weapons. Is that
so
right?
So nothing happens until they hand over
the nukes.
Well, they don't have nukes. They had some enriched uranium. Now,
well, we hit some silos there in the beginning.
We hit processing and
okay. So they were processing the uranium.
They were trying to get to weapons grade uranium.
Okay.
And once you have weapons grade, you just slap it on. They had missiles capable of carrying a nuclear payload. They just had no nuclear material to put in there. We blew up everything. In fact, so they've got it. They've agreed to hand over everything, And now we're going to have to extract it because every one of those sites is rubble. So we're going to have to send in us and international teams,
humanoids,
to go dig this stuff out and collect all. And they keep on saying dust because that's what's left. There's no.
They hit them hard.
Yeah, we wiped out their capabilities, but they've said we no nuclear program of ours. We won't try and buy nukes, etc. Again, these are what treaties are based on. We'll see, but the sanctions will lift, and it's going to lift previous sanctions, which is a problem for China because China's been buying ghost ships of oil on the black market, knowing that they were sanctioned. Well, if there's no more sanctions, now there's no more black market, which means China has to pay full price for their oil, which creates a new problem for China and their energy cost.
Yeah, China's hurting a little bit for energy.
Yes.
That is one of the things that they are hurting with. Of course, we are too. I mean, we're hurting for energy right now. We're trying to come up. I mean, we're having to buy energy from freaking Canada. So, and I think you had said, did you say with Mexico they were thinking about doing something down there too, or was that just product?
No, I think it's just product.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Canada, we're getting energy because these data centers, going back to the data centers, we're sucking so much freaking energy up on a daily that they're having a hard time producing enough. And then with the droughts and the dams and how we produce all this energy is going down too. Thank goodness here in the Austin area we've been getting a ton of rain, but
we're still way behind.
Yeah.
And it gets interesting because it will become, water to me is one to watch. And what happened, I think it was in the 90s, it may have been in the 80s, the Great Lake Compact, so the 5 states that surround the Great Lakes signed an agreement about how that water is being used. The Great Lakes is the second largest freshwater source in the world.
Right.
It's 20% of all fresh water on this planet.
I can believe that.
Is in the Great Lakes.
Yeah, I've seen them there. I mean, it's massive.
And basically, these 7 states, 5 states, signed this agreement, and they've got a stranglehold on that water. That's going to become a problem.
Yeah. It's
so the other problem is they've signed a couple of agreements where they grandfathered in, but legally it'll be very interesting because they're diverting like wastewater and not fresh water. But as some of the flows, out of the mountains and stuff start to trickle down, some of these historical flows that used to be are now controlled.
Well, and they're not getting the same with the climate changes. They're not getting the same amount of snowfall, which is not melting.
Yeah, which again, this affects
everything.
Mississippi, Colorado,
right?
These big rivers that multiple states, but you have this fresh water that historically they had some flow from these Great Lakes, and they've been blocked by dams and all this, and they're releasing less of that water. Eventually, it's your neighbor upstream has built a dam. What do you do?
Right.
So this will be there's going to be a lot of court cases, and if the drought continues, not too distant future.
Yeah, we got problems. We got lots of problems coming.
So,
well,
the other one is so the largest freshwater deposit on the planet is in Canada. So we have in North America, we have the top 2. North America has I guess about 42% of all the fresh water on this planet in one continent. You don't count, and that's without factoring in what Mexico has. But
right.
So I imagine it's probably approaching 45%, so almost half the water in the world we control. So
it's a lot of resources.
It's a lot of resources that becomes a problem. So Canada's interesting, where it looks like their referendum for Alberta to become independent is still moving along.
So what are they going to join us? What are they going to do?
So the referendum to become independent doesn't necessarily make that. They could then choose to join the United States.
I wouldn't see why they wouldn't.
That's the most likely scenario, and it's just because.
Don't they have all the resources?
They have all the energy. They have all the energy for sure. So all the oil, almost like 95% of all Canadian oil.
Well, don't you know that they're freaking out in the rest of the country about losing?
Well,
because everything's going to get more expensive as soon as that happens.
Well, and so they are a net contributor. So Alberta money goes into their federal government and funds like 65 to 70% of everything that happens in the government, and they get back in government funds only 20% of the total federal revenue. So they're contributing 60, getting 20 back. So
yeah, that would be a good leveraging point for the United States if in fact they decide to join, or they allow them to join. Then that's a leverage right there for us to take over the complete Canada right there.
It would be, and that's what some of the economists say. They don't know that Canada could survive.
They can't.
And if they can't survive, then
the numbers say
would they allow?
I don't think that they're. I don't know.
So,
that would, because if we got Alberta and they're producing that much energy, then it's just a leveraging point from that point to take over the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Because all we got to do is just, all right, well, don't give anybody else any more energy, and of course,
that's how war started.
Yeah, or you just sit there and you like the frog in the boiling water, you just keep rising the cost. Now here's the thing that most people don't understand about Canada. They're a socialist country. So they're paying over 50%, like 60% in taxes of their income to the government. Let me tell you how they actually live, because remember, I used to travel all throughout Canada.
Yeah.
I've gone to from the east to the west. I've stayed up there a lot. Beautiful country, by the way. Great people. I love Canadians. But let me tell you, the way that they live is not the way that we live here in the United States.
No.
They have socialized medicine. They have all the stuff that everybody that the extremists want. And let me tell you something, y'all, people that don't know what they're talking about, go and visit those environments and see the lifestyle and see the way. And you got to go into people's homes. I was going into people's homes because I actually would visit these people, became friends with these people, and I could see they lived in a nice high-rise apartment, but they had nothing. They literally, compared to what we have, we got excess shit everywhere.
Yeah.
They have nothing. They've got the necessities, but this guy was working right next to me. He was an engineer right next to me, but his salary and with taxes was substantially less.
Yeah.
And so I was like, but he was equivalent from a Canadian standpoint as I was. And so I was sitting there going, man, the lifestyle is totally different. His car was tiny, but it's not bad, but it's just not excess. It's a different mindset.
Well, and it's limited. It limits resources. Yes, they have socialized medicine, but when your average wait in an ER is 18 hours.
Well, that's true too.
Unless you go to a private ER, and you can only do that if you have money.
Right. Well, and that's why they come over here.
And that's why they come over here.
Yeah, and that's what people don't talk about is that they're coming over here to get their medicines and, or not necessarily the medicine, but the care.
The care, yeah.
Yeah,
no,
not the medicine, because the medicine is cheap over there.
The medication is cheap, but it may take you 6 months or a year to get into that doctor to prescribe you that medicine.
Right. So that's why they're coming, or surgery.
Yeah. Surgery. Their stats on surgery are, and
I'm going to go back to now. This is where artificial intelligence and robotics is going to help us, because that process would get more fluid and more. And I hate to say it, but I think the one solution is going to be is this, and I'm going to use Elon's term. What is it? High income. What's the first word? Whatever the income is.
Oh, universal income.
Universal high income.
Universal. Yeah, that's actually been very recently they've.
Yeah, Elon coined that term as universal high income, and so I've been trying to say that instead of universal. What is it? Distributed income or whatever.
Yeah.
I
never like the distributed income. But
yeah, I don't either, because it makes you feel poor. But if we go to that model, which we're probably going to end up being forced to, we'll probably end up having that type of medicine, and hopefully that it will get to the point of more automated.
Yeah, I think it. Here's the thing. It's, yes, AI, robotics, scans are all going to become, they're going to become better. They're going to become better over time. The problem with any kind of development in that area is, and I don't consider it a big, you have the FDA, you have approvals, you have these things before it can become readily available.
It's already here.
The research and development that the R&D costs are huge. That will begin to come down. So now these companies, again, it's with universal income, you have to actually have a shift in how the economies work.
Yeah, that's the caveat, because we do not operate in that realm.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be a huge shift. And the bloat, there's not going to be a bloat for the government going forward. So that, I think, is going to scare the shit out of them, in the sense that how are they going to get their income?
Yeah.
Because right now, we get taxed as humans, workers, twice as much as corporations. Corporations are capped at 25%.
Yeah.
We're encroaching 50-60% right now. You got state tax, you got federal income tax, you got sales tax, you got all these taxes, right? When you add all those taxes up, we're at the 50% marker right now. So we pay approximately double of what corporations are paying.
Yeah.
So that is going to have to change because we're not going to be paying the tax. If we're unemployed, we're not going to be paying taxes. So that's the big one.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, when we talk about this rate of change, it is, to me, you talk about, AI is going to be the extinction event. It's going to be the thing that wipes us out. People don't get really specific. How is it going to wipe us out? It's the fact that the globe is not going to modernize at the same rate. So,
right
now you're going to have countries that are ready to move to basically cashless, universal. They'll have currency, but the currency will be more of a byproduct, so you can deal with countries not inside. It's when when the cost of goods is so low that it's negligible. It doesn't.
See, that's something that I have a hard time wrapping my head around because I'm a capitalist. So how, and I don't believe, and so just from history on prices and stuff, cost of goods doesn't really drop. So, I mean, you might see a dip, but that dip does not get as far down as it was originally. So my example is you have the cost of goods and then something happens like a war and then the price goes up. When that price comes back down, it is still higher. Typically, it very rarely does it drop below the normal price of that product. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but again, it's you go back to your robots. As robots are mining the raw materials, it's you have to get
in theory
you have to get they may put us to work in the mines.
Yeah,
what are we going to
do? The robots might be our managers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cheaper to have Joe Bob over there than it is to have that $25,000 robot.
Yeah,
that's slavery.
But I mean, in theory, it's once you move high capacity technology into the lowest component of finished goods, that's when it's over. Yeah,
it's over at that point.
Yeah, because those costs when iron ore is pennies a ton.
Again, I'm not sure because of the scarcity of product. That's why they're talking about mining meteorites and
asteroids
stuff.
And all that, yeah.
So
and again, these are just...
I don't think that the cost of goods is going to fall that substantially because scarcity plays a part in that variable. So just because you have a machine that's automated that can pull this product, if there's not a lot of product out there, that price of that good is going to remain high.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And as it works today, what I'm saying is, again, it is a fundamental. It is going to take a fundamental shift in how economies work.
Right. It will.
And that shift, to me, is one of the things that we may not survive. It may create inequities that put us at war with each other, and
yeah, it's going to be wild. I may move to a third world country.
Well, I mean,
or an island. I think I'm going to move to an island somewhere and just sip fucking calyx all day. And
yeah, I mean, okay, we replace all the engineers in the U.S. Doesn't mean all engineers are going to be not going to be needed in other parts of the world.
No, I think that's going to be a shift as well. I'm glad you brought that up. I think as technology shifts, because I'm seeing it with a lot of movie stars and people that have money, they're shifting to, they don't like what's coming, so they're looking at Costa Rica, they're looking at islands, they're looking at, and that's why I'm thinking if I get a bunch of money, I'm probably going to move to an island somewhere, and just telecommute or something. I don't know. It's a lot to think about. All right, Steve, you ready to wrap this up today?
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. If you're still with us, check in soon, and it's a lot to think about. Feel free to leave comments on the site, and we'll try to answer them. Talk to y'all later.
Thanks.
You pushed me down, thought I'd stay on the ground, counting me out like the numbers didn't matter. But pressure builds diamonds in the dark, and I've been sharpening my edge in the chatter. Every scar turned into strategy, every setback fueled my clarity. I took the hits, learned the game, turned my losses into flame. Now I'm coming back strong and you'll remember my name. I'm rising through the fire, breaking every wall you built around me. Heart's a battle drum, beating louder, a force you'll never drown. See, this is my return, my moment, my power. I'm rising, yeah, I'm rising.
Did you hear LeRoy is about to sue a lot of people?